Welcome to Inspire Campfire, a podcast where ordinary people tell their stories of extraordinary adventure. These are campfire stories meant to inspire the rest of us to light the fire within, get outside, follow our dreams, and return to tell our own stories. Ready? Let's strike the match.
Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Scott Wurzbacher, and today we have a very special episode where we'll discuss compassionate leadership, belonging, social awareness, moral courage, and action for social change. These are the objectives for the North Carolina Outward Bound School's Charlotte Unity Project, which starts with a free 7-day wilderness program for a diverse group of 48 high school students across 8 high schools in the Charlotte, North Carolina area. Students learn technical skills, engage in meaningful conversation, and are empowered to lead and problem solve. When they return to school, they're encouraged to participate in their high school's Unity Club to share what they've learned, support and encourage others, and make significant contributions to their community. You might recall episode 44 when the Charlotte program manager, Alexys talked about her experience with Outward Bound and the Unity Project, which she now leads. Today, we have 3 recent Unity Project participants with us to talk about their transformational experiences. These 3 bright high school student leaders are amazing, and I can't wait to share their stories with you today. Chris, Yasmin, Leilan, welcome to the campfire.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So excited to hear about your journey that you guys have had over the last couple of summers. Some people that are listening to this might not be familiar with Outward Bound or the Unity Project. And I want to start with that. And Yasmin, I wonder if we could start with you. Could you just tell us a little bit more about what Outward Bound and the Unity Project is?
Of course. Outward Bound, you kind of gave the more technical definition to it at the beginning, but I thought of it, the words that jumped out to me when I learned or when I read about what Outward Bound was leadership, resilience, and teamwork. I personally saw Outward Bound as a way to try something different because it doesn't fit into kind of the mold that people think that I tend to be. So Outward Bound for me was really just the chance to try something new and do something that I knew wasn't going to be comfortable for me.
It's amazing. Chris, I want to ask you, what did you think Outward Bound was, and what did you think the Unity Project was before you became a participant?
When I first came to high school, I seen a picture of kids outside, and I was like, oh, that looks interesting. And so my instructor that was over for our school, she was like, Chris, you look like you'd be interested in something like this. And I was like, what is it? And she was like, it's an Outward Bound course. And I was like, oh, what is that? And so she explained it to me. And at first I was like, I don't think I would do something like that. Like, that doesn't sound like me. But then I was like, you know what? I'm going to try something new. So I was like, sign me up.
I love that so much. So, I mean, it's a wilderness course, right? I mean, it starts with a 7-day backpacking course. Leilan, what about you? I mean, was this something, did you know what you were getting yourself into?
I mean, I kind of knew just from you and from Alexys, but I mean, I've had a lot of experience with backpacking and outdoor activity type things. So I kind of knew what I was getting into on that aspect. But in terms of like meeting new people and then like actually getting out there and being there, like thinking about it is very different than actually being in the woods, carrying all your stuff. So well, I thought I was prepared. It was definitely still a shock to actually get out into the woods and like be present.
Yeah, I love it so much. So each of you guys kind of have your own unique, like how you came to the Unity Project, and you each have sort of your own individual like experiences that you had kind of leading up to it. Chris, let's go to you. How did you get involved with Unity, and what was sort of your outdoor experience before you did Unity Project?
Like I said, when my instructor, my school teacher was like, you should do it, I signed up. Like, I literally finished everything within that day. I was like, let me try it. And so when it became like everything started happening, I was like, Lord, what is this? And like when we got there, I seen all the bags and all the stuff I was carrying. I was like, I'm not gonna be able to do this. It's a lot. And when I first started, I was like, yeah, I like kept telling him like, I just want to go home. Like, can this be over? But like once I really got into it, I was like, oh, this is something I like. I think I could do this like every summer. I feel like it was a great experience overall, and I think I'll do it again.
Love it. So, Chris, I want to stay with you for a minute. What was your previous outdoor experience before Unity?
I I think I was like 13 or 14, and my mom and her best friend, which is my goddad, he had bought like 13 acres of land in Oklahoma. And so she was like, I'm going to send you down there for the summer so you can help him. I was like, I don't want to do it. So we ended up driving, I think it was like a 14-hour drive. And I was like, okay, boom. And when I got out there, it was like nothing but trees. And it was just like wood. I was like, Lord, what is this? And I kept telling him like I want to go home. Like this is nothing I do. I stay in the city. I don't go outside the city. I stay in the house or go out. I kind of enjoyed it. It brought me out my comfort zone. I can say that. I had like so much fun, like meeting new people and then playing with like the animals. Like I used to play with, I played with a pig. I played with a bunch of animals, and at first I was like, "This is weird. Like, why would I be doing something like this?" But I kind of like enjoyed it. Like this was away time from my mom and away from my siblings. So I was like, "Okay, I got a vacation." And then it ended up being longer than what she told me. It ended up from being the beginning of summer, which was what June, to like September. And I was like, I'm like this. You tricked me. But like once I did it, and like once I realized, I was like, this was fun. Like I think I would do it again. I think I just wait till I'm old enough.
That's awesome. So, do you think that experience on the farm that summer helped you say yes to this adventure that is Outward Bound?
No, actually, well, it did once I thought about it. But when I first signed up for Outward Bound, wasn't thinking about. Oh, I had done something like this before. I wasn't thinking about it because I was like, what is Outward Bound? Like I'm thinking you just like going outside the city, just doing stuff like that. But then once I got it, I was like, okay, I've done this before. Just difference is I didn't have to carry backpacks. That was the only difference. Like I was like, I done something like this before, but I didn't have to carry back. But that was really like it.
It's a little more than just going outside the city, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yasmin, what about you? What was your previous outdoor experience prior to Unity?
If you were to ask me beach or mountains, I'm going to say beach 100%. Ever since I was little, my mom's been very big on like having me explore things. And so I've been visiting national parks for a while now. I remember having like the national park like card thing when I was in fourth grade that you would go for free. So I traveled down to Texas with all my cousins and we went to White Sands and we did all the national parks over there because you can do them all over the US. Other than that, and a few mountain trips, maybe like day mountain trips, I don't have any experience like with camping and backpacking. I had never ever done that before. I have gone to the beach and to resorts and the fun stuff, but I have never gone camping or anything like that. It's not my thing. So I really had no experience prior to, other than walking maybe in the forest. I had no other experience going into Outward Bound.
Yeah. Okay. That's awesome. So I want to sort of paint a picture for listeners on like what this backpacking course is like. So Leilan, could you describe the just sort of the 7-day course? Like, what did you do? Where did you go? Like, what was the daily routine? Could you sort of like give us an overview of what the week was like?
Yeah, so the course is obviously, as you said, 7 days, and it's through the mountains in Pisgah National Forest, I believe. And so basically, we meet up, all of the Unity students meet at a high school in Charlotte, and we all get on a bus together and we travel 2 hours to the mountains. And then there we'll split off into our groups and meet everybody in our crews. Our crews were usually around 10 people. And then we would get our gear, all of our backpacks, our boots, everything like that. And then we would set off. And each group basically got their own route. So there was an off chance that you would meet the other groups, but for the most part, we were by ourselves. So it was kind of just you and 9 other crewmates and then your 2 or 3 instructors. And that was all you saw for 7 days. So it was just you guys out there. But we would wake up usually around 7 in the morning, I think, make breakfast, and then get set hiking for the day. And so we'd hike a couple of miles. It was usually designated. I can't remember how much exactly, but we would hike, stop for lunch, keep hiking, and then get to camp, set up camp, and then make dinner. We made all of our meals at campsites, and then we spent a lot of times in like circles having conversations with each other, talking about different topics. It kind of depended on where we were in our trip or how we were feeling, but it was a lot of just getting used to the physical endurance of hiking for that long and carrying all of our stuff, and then also getting to know everyone on our crew.
That's great. So you painted a picture of like that first day of meeting your crews. I'm curious for all three of you. I want to get a take from each of you. And Leilan, we'll stay with you. But what were you feeling like that first day? Like when you got on the bus, but meeting the crew, like were there nerves? Like what was going on inside?
I was really nervous. I was really nervous. I decided to go on the trip by myself because I'm definitely a people person. So I wanted to kind of go outside of my bubble and meet people that I wouldn't have otherwise met just from my high school alone. So I went by myself and I got there and I didn't know anybody. And then I was like, oh no, what did I do? Like now I don't know anybody and I don't know who I'm going to talk to. So it was scary, but I ended up really liking all of the people on my crew and we all got really close.
Yeah. Chris, how about you? What were you feeling on that first day and especially like even those first hours?
I was nervous because I was like, dang, I'm by myself. At first, I didn't think my school was small. Hawthorne was small. It's still small. And so I wasn't thinking like, oh, people was going to do it. And then I was like, yeah, I'm by myself. And then I found one of my friends. I was like, oh, you doing this too? I was like, okay, so I'm not alone. And I think once we got to like where we had to meet our crews, I was like, okay, this is interesting. I just sit back. I'm a person to where I'll just sit back and like observe stuff. That's what I was doing. Like I'm just sitting quiet, observing how everybody interacts and acts around each other. And I was like, okay, it may not be that bad.
Awesome. Yasmin, what about you? Those first few hours, what were you feeling?
I was really excited. I thought a lot of things were weird. I thought a lot of things were weird. We were cutting a tomato on my suitcase, so that was one of my first impressions. But I was excited. I've grown up with an older brother and a younger sister. I'm the middle child, so I'm very independent. I've been raised that way, very independent, but I'm also a big extrovert because of my dad. And I was ordering my meals at McDonald's since I was like 4. So he made me speak a lot and I'm just very extroverted and I love talking with others. So I was really excited. I wasn't really nervous. I was more excited than everything for sure. And then just a little like, I thought a few things were weird, but other than that, I was looking forward to a great time.
Yeah. Okay. So another one, because Leilan, you said something, you talked about like the physical endurance and like physical struggle that happens on a 7-day backpacking course. And I'm curious, like, what was like one thing, like, or one experience that each of you guys had where you had to really push through that physical struggle? Yasmin, let's stay with you on that one.
I actually have a funny story before I tell you. I had done a whole bunch of reading, obviously, because I didn't know what I was going into. And so I thought we were doing 7 miles a day in the backpacking. It was not like that at all. We were only doing maybe a mile, but I thought it was 7 miles. And so, I was working out before. I'm already very active because I do sports, but I was working out like crazy. I was like, yeah, 7 miles a day. Let's with a heavy backpack. At the first 30 minutes, I told my instructor, I was like, are we really going to do 7 miles? And she says, 7 miles? What? No, it's maybe a mile. We're almost there. And I was like, oh, okay. I thought we were doing 7 miles. My hardest physical struggle is probably towards the end. I had the right socks and the right shoes and everything, but maybe because I just wasn't used to hiking for so long, or maybe it being the entirety of my day, I started getting blisters on my feet and it just became really uncomfortable to walk around, even when I didn't have my gear on. So that was my hardest physical struggle.
Got it. Yeah. Well, it sounds like you were prepared though for the.
Oh yeah. If I had to do 7 miles, I was so ready to do it.
Leilan, how about you? What was the most physically demanding part for you?
I think for me, it was kind of getting used to wearing the backpack. Like I've done a lot of hiking So I have a lot of experience with that, but I don't usually carry my livelihood on my back when I do it. So that was an adjustment. But then also, I remember there was one hike where we weren't really going very far, but our incline we increased in a ton of elevation, but not so much distance. So it was super steep. And we were all wearing our backpacks. We all thought we were just going to like topple over backwards and fall down the mountain. It definitely hurt your legs climbing up that incline, but we made it through.
Awesome. Chris, how about you?
I think the backpacks. Like I'm not used to carrying no bag with a bunch of food and clothes and all kinds of stuff. I was like, Lord, like I think the first day I had already took the bag off. I was like, to get this off, like it was heavy, but like once you get used to it, you're like, okay, I got it.
What about weather? So, how did the weather impact your experience? Chris, let's go with you.
Well, it did rain on one like for most of it, to where wasn't able to do our rock climbing. So I mean, it was the problem for everybody, but me, I was dancing. I was literally I put the whole rain jacket on, and me and my instructor was dancing outside in the rain.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I'm a minion, because the rain jacket and the rain pants is all yellow. So I was like, yeah, I'm a minion, y'all. And so I was literally just dancing in the rain. I kind of liked it though.
Yeah, you're out in the rain and you seem to embrace it. You were okay with it.
I was like, this is my little mini shower.
Yeah. Leilan, what about you? How's the weather affect your trip?
The weather was pretty good for most of the trip. There was one day where it rained, it rained pretty hard for a couple hours in the afternoon. But other than that, other than the soggy socks and the wet boots before we could get our rain gear on, it was pretty good.
And Yasmin, what about you? How'd the weather impact your trip?
I don't really like the rain, but I want to say it created one of the most beautiful memories I ended up having. We got rained out really bad. I think it lasted about like 2 days, and there was like flooding in a few areas, but we ended up disrupting our course and coming down to a different part that we weren't really supposed to come to. And we got to stay in like, not really a cabin, but it had like wood flooring on it, so we didn't have to set up our tents. It was like a shed kind of.
Okay.
And when we got to stay there, they have an open field, and so that we stayed there for 2 nights. And one of the nights we all came together and we were like, let's play some games, because we had just been there the whole day. We weren't really traveling other than the community service project. And we played relay races and tag, and I just remember that being some of the most beautiful memories I formed there.
That's so fun. So it seems like all of you guys experienced some bad weather, some rain. And when you're backpacking, I mean, you're outside. It's, it is what it is. It sounds like each of you guys embraced the rain and didn't really let it mess up your experience. Like, do you guys, if you think back to like the time when you were actually there and it was raining, like, do you remember kind of like wishing you could be inside, or, just kind of like wishing it was different, or like, not enjoying the rain experience?
I think that one of the things you learn is being grateful and finding the good in your situation, in every situation. That's kind of, they were giving us things to learn every single day, and that was one of them. So by the time we got rained out, it was like the fourth or fifth day. We were nearing the end of our course, and so your mindset kind of shifts a little bit, and it's not always like, in the beginning, I will definitely say, I was like, man, I really wish. But towards the end, I'm like, well, this is my situation. Wishing can't really change it. And that's why I think we all kind of embraced something that was uncomfortable, or something we might have earlier wished of changing.
Yeah, that's great. That's great learning. I mean, it shows, you even talked about like the way you felt about the rain and struggle early on and how it kind of changed throughout the week. That's really great learning. So like, I guess if we talk about that, like, what were some of the learning experiences that each of you guys had on the trip? Chris, what about you? What were some of your favorite experiences and some of the things that you learned?
And I like to cook. So it was like fun learning how to cook outside, and then having people enjoy my food. I was like, yeah, I can cook. I know I can.
Oh, you were the cook for your group.
Most of our meals, I was doing it. And so I was like, yeah, this is something I enjoy.
So that's awesome. Was that something that you knew about yourself before this trip?
Oh, that I was gonna cook, yeah. I'm gonna cook because I watched my first day. I watched how my instructor did, and I was like, that's not how I don't think you should do it. And my way, I wouldn't have did it like that. But I was like, okay, so yeah, I'm just gonna do that. I just every time I'm just I'm gonna ask the cook. Like I'm gonna make sure I do the cooking.
I love this. So you're embracing your talents. Was there any particular learning experience that you felt like you had on your course, Chris?
Learning how to work around people and working with people, because some people learn different and work has a different work ethic than you.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that? Were there any particular like examples of like things you had to do to work with people?
So I was like the only gay kid there. And so you're listening to like all these people, all these men, doing different things.
Yeah.
So I think I had to like learn how to adjust and how I did. They did teach me how to do some stuff like how to work with each other, talk to each other, and how to start conversations, because most of the time I was quiet, so I didn't interact with nobody. And so they kind of helped me get out my comfort zone and talk more and work with each other more.
Awesome. Yasmin, let's go to you. What were some of the key lessons that you had from your experience and any particular experiences like related to that learning?
I remember when we were down at the cabins, we had like the small sheds in the back where we would sleep. And then there was like this main kind of shed with the large open area. And so that's kind of where we hung our wet clothes and where we kind of hung out and where we cooked throughout the day. And so our food was packaged like, do you remember what it was? It wasn't a bear hang, but there was like a tub where we had to place the food. We had a tub that time because we didn't need a bear hang because they had a box designed specifically for that. And so I remember having a bag over there and the floor was just completely wet. So there were rocks and then there was the muddy grass to get there. And I brought the wrong type of shoes. So I had water shoes, but they were like the felt ones. They weren't really Crocs. So they weren't drying. And every time my feet were dry and I would just have to put the wet shoes on. And I really didn't want to do that because it was uncomfortable. So I had asked one of my leaders, I was like, can you hand me that bag? Even though I was really only like 10 steps away. And he handed it to me, but he also taught me one of the lessons was self-sufficiency. And he just kind of talked me through that. And I think that was an important thing to learn on that trip.
I love that story. Leilan, what about you? A favorite experience and a lesson learned from it?
I feel like the biggest learning experience I had was just like a shift in my mindset in terms of my capabilities in a wilderness setting. Like my experiences growing up with outdoors helped me to be more confident, but I hadn't quite recognized how capable I could be, or how, like she was talking about the self-sufficiency lessons that they taught us, like how independent I could be in that kind of remote setting. And just being able to like recognize that ability of mine was a big moment for me.
Were there any specific moments that you had where you really were able to like show that to yourself, like where you kind of surprised yourself?
So on the course, we have different roles. Like there's the cooks and the leaders and like the people that filter the water and stuff like that. So we've kind of transitioned through everybody and everyone tested out the roles. And then we had more days that we could see who just wanted to be in what role, which roles they liked the best. And I found myself like drawn to the leadership role. So me and one of my other crewmates decided to be the leaders for the rest of the trip so that we could help like guide the people. And that kind of just connected to me realizing that like this was something I could do and this was something I could help teach others and use my experiences from growing up and my other outdoor experiences to kind of help get people like more motivated and having more fun out there.
Was that something that you knew about yourself before Outward Bound, or do you feel like you just kind of discovered it on that trip?
I feel like I've always been kind of a leader, but I feel like Outward Bound kind of shone a light on it just in my own mind. I think other people recognized it in me more than I recognized it in myself. And the trip just helps me to understand it about myself.
That's awesome. So I want to talk a little bit about one of the things that you guys talked about was the discussions that you guys had. And I think you mentioned, I think Leilan, you said that each night you guys would kind of gather around and have discussions. And I wonder if you could kind of tell us a little bit about those and what they were like. So Yasmin, let's start with you. What were the discussions that you guys had?
Well, we were given prompts to follow every night. We would talk about them before, and then we'd head out into our solo time. I remember the first one being very more of an introduction, very simple. And then as the days went on, we were given more complex topics to really think on. I want to say that I tended to veer off a lot of the topics. So I would write maybe 2 sentences that did follow the topic. But for the most part, I used that reflection time to just write about how I was feeling or how I felt on certain things. Because you can talk to people, but since I didn't really know them, I didn't feel comfortable telling everyone everything. And I'm a big talker. I like to release. So I couldn't really do it by talking. So I would just write down everything of my experience that I didn't really feel comfortable sharing with others.
Got it. That makes sense. Leilan, do you remember anything about just the experience of just being with everybody at the end of each night? I think did you have those discussion groups sort of before dinner, after dinner, and what did that sort of time mean to you?
We usually did our kind of like circle up type discussions before dinner. We usually made dinner, had everything ready, and then kind of met as a crew before we went and ate. So my group did it more free form, I guess I would call it. So
Okay.
they would introduce the topic, and then based on how we were feeling or like what happened that day, we could kind of take it wherever we wanted to. So I feel like they introduced the topics, but it would sway more towards like conversation based and more towards like getting to know each other. And they were more centered around like just kind of expanding our horizons and more on that like diversity aspect of the Unity project and like getting to know each other from different bubbles and seeing what it was like. We talked a lot about our high school experiences coming from different schools and what our schools were like, what our classes were like, and kind of just acknowledging our differences and then learning from each other in that way.
Yeah, so I love that time. I mean, you guys had like this sort of physical, like hiking, rock climbing this during the day, and then you had this time before dinner to actually come together as a group. And I think we all have to remember, like for a lot of you guys, you didn't know a lot of the kids that were in your circle. So I'm curious, like what that not even necessarily the topics, but like what the experience of the nightly circle up kind of meant to you guys in terms of just that bonding experience with this group of people that you're just sort of getting to know. Yasmin, how about you?
I want to say, I thought I can be very judgmental at times. And so I thought everything was really weird and awkward. When there's like long silences in group conversations, I tend to fill in that silence. So I felt like I was always like one of the first ones talking or one of the only ones sharing. Everyone else from my group, there were a few. I don't really want to describe it as leaders. There were because everyone can be a leader. There were a few like more outspoken people, but for the most part, my group was very reserved, shy, and quiet. Like the majority of them, it was just their personality, which is okay. So it was very, I don't want to, maybe, yeah, uncomfortable at the beginning because nobody was really speaking, or the things they would share would maybe be like a sentence, so very vague. But I want to say that towards the end of the course, people kind of started to realize, like, if we just sat there in silence for 5 minutes, we'd sit there until someone said something because silence was an okay thing. And so, like, towards the end, by the end, we were having full out discussions where everyone was participating. And that was just a beautiful change to see within my crew.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask you that, like how did those conversations change from like the beginning of the week to the end of the week?
So in the beginning, it often felt like I was the first one speaking. It almost felt like I was having a conversation maybe with myself, because after I would speak, there would just be long periods of silence. But towards the end of the week, it no longer became like a question answer. It became like a conversation. So someone else would maybe answer, and then you would have someone be like, oh yeah, and this, and oh yeah, and this. Oh, and remember 2 days ago? Wait, was it 2 days ago? Type of conversation. And so, just reliving through the memories and the experiences and things we had learned, it didn't feel so interviewy, and it just became like a beautiful conversation to have.
That's awesome. Leilan, let's go to you. Like how did you see the conversation kind of change from the beginning of the week to the end of the week, and sort of, how the relationships changed as part of that?
Yeah, I feel like for my group, my group, I did have two different high schools. I had my own high school, and then there was another one from, I can't remember where, but another part of Charlotte. So the students from the other high school, they had all known each other, so they kind of came as friends. And then me and the other students from my high school actually didn't know each other at all because it's such a big high school that I go to. So there was kind of a dynamic of like one high school knowing each other and then the other not knowing anybody. And it was kind of just a mix of people. But then, as I feel like on the second night, we kind of all were able to come together and like form that like a group and like a unionized kind of group dynamic that we felt. Like there was one night in particular where we had finished cleaning up dinner and someone brought out a deck of cards, and then there was a stream nearby our campsite, so we went and collect like river stones, and we started playing poker with the
Nice.
river stones and the deck of cards. And we did that for so long until our instructors like yelled from their tent to tell us to be quiet and go to bed because it was so late. But I feel like that moment in particular, like playing poker with everybody, kind of brought us all together because our whole group participated. So it was kind of just a bonding moment for us. And then we were able to stay as like a tight, strong, connected group for the rest of the trip, which was good.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing that, Chris. I believe your group had a special name for that circle up time.
Twilight Delight.
Twilight Delight. I love that. So I want to know, like, when you guys had Twilight Delight, how did you see those sort of structured conversations facilitate like relationships that were built throughout the week?
I think the questions like I guess tried to like open you up and interact with each other. So we had like one. I feel like once we like got into it more, it was questions like who is someone that you've met here that you would have never thought you'd talk to, or who made you feel appreciated today, who could do work on something, and stuff like questions like that. And I feel like they kind of open up more and be comfortable with each other more.
I love that. Okay, so guys, we talked a little bit about the relationship side, and we might come back to that. But one of the key elements of an outward bound program or a course is the solo. Yasmin, can you tell listeners what is the solo?
So solo time was a time for you to reflect. Solo, of course, it has it in the name. You're by yourself, and what's really cool is that your instructors separated you from everyone else. So you were really just by yourself, and even though you had people around you, they weren't really in sight. And it was really just a time for you to reconnect, whether that would have been with nature or yourself, or reconnect with your experience, and a time to process and think about what was really going on. Because I feel like a lot of times our life is blurred, and so we're kind of just living through the moment. Living through the moment is something almost normal now. And so solo time, given the time to reflect, allowed you to think on your experiences and about what you were learning or what you could do better.
That's great. Thank you. Approximately how much time are you in that solo space?
About 30 minutes.
Okay. So Chris, can you tell us what you did during your solo time?
I just laid there and looked at because I was kind of scared at first because I have I fear of snakes, and so I was like, Lord, like what if I'm laying down or just sitting here and a snake come up on me? But not, I just really like laid down, and I was just thinking about like, dang, if I never signed up for this, I don't think I would ever get like an experience like this. And then I just sat there, looked at squirrels and birds play around with each other, and then I kind of wished it was a little longer, just because I feel like I would have had some more stuff to think about.
Yeah. So you enjoyed the solo experience.
I feel like it was fun. I feel like they should offer more like solo time, just so you can be in your own thoughts and not have to hear everybody at once. And I just felt like when I did the solo, me coming back to the group, I feel like I was refreshed, and I was like, yeah.
I love that. I'm curious, like fast forward to like outside of the course, do you ever think back on like how much you appreciated that time alone and kind of do your own little solo, like away from the course, just in regular life?
Usually I think now I just walk around by myself. But I'm usually doing that. But I have a park down the street, so I've been planning to go to at least early in the morning, go by myself.
Yeah. Leilan, what about you? How was your solo experience?
So I think my solo was also a little bit structured differently than the other crews might have done it. So
Okay.
we did, rather than little increments every day, we did one couple hour solo time
Okay.
period just on one day during the trip. So it was kind of, we talked about it on the days leading up to it, and then we finally had our solo time. And then we were able to kind of remember that for the rest of the days. But so we had a couple hours to ourselves, and similar to the other crews, we were by ourselves, away or out of sight, but within earshot of everyone else. And I kind of used that time to, like Yasmin said, to reflect on our experiences, but also I wrote a letter to my future self, and they said that, like, they gave us journals to write in.
Mhm.
So I wrote my letter and then gave it to one of my instructors, and then they actually mailed it to me 6 months after my trip.
Oh,
So
so cool.
I received that in December of last year, and it was cool to open it and kind of just see my thoughts from the trip and see what I thought my life would be like 6 months from now and see how it matched up.
Any surprises?
Not really.
That's pretty cool to get a letter from yourself. Love that. Yasmin, you had a pretty impactful solo experience. Can you tell us about yours?
I did. Over the course of my solo experience, like I mentioned before, I kind of veered off of the topics, and I really took advantage of the fact that it was my time to have. And so amidst of my solo time, veering off from the topics meant that I could explore anything I really wanted to. And so in the beginning, because I've never really journaled before, I kind of just wrote what I was grateful for because I didn't really know what else to write. But as the solo times continued and I got more times in the solo, I thought of ideas of what to write about. And part of those ideas touched on topics that were sensitive to me. So they touched on important topics, things that I have only thought about. And so I talked a little bit about my father's childhood and how that might have impacted the way he is now or the way he is with us. And then I thought about my mom. My parents had divorced in seventh grade, I think. So it's been a few years, and kind of the impact that's had on me and my siblings. I also care, like, family is like a really big thing for me, especially coming from a Latin background. And so I kind of talked about the relationship contrast that I have with my brother, who I'm super close with, but we're 8 years apart. And then with my little sister, who I feel there's like still grudge and things to work on, even though we're much closer and only 3 years apart. So really being able to touch on those topics and think about how they made me feel and how they form and impact my actions was just super insightful experience to have.
It's powerful. It's really powerful. Thank you for sharing that. You guys, it seems like you all had really impactful experiences, and I'm curious, it seems like there's got to be a range of emotion that happens throughout the course of the week, and I'm wondering if each of you might be able to share, like, what were one or two of the emotions that you really remember experiencing. And Leilan, I'll start with you.
I feel like my primary emotion was probably excitement because I love, love, love spending time in the outdoors. It's my favorite place. Like, I would rather be in the outdoors than anywhere else on the planet. So just being able to be in the place that I love and meeting new people, which is another important, like, part of myself. I really value the fact that I'm a connector and I love to meet new people. So being able to do what I love in the place that I love was so powerful for me. But then also, when you're in the woods by yourself with new people and you're trying to, like, test the water, see where everyone is at, it can be a little, not frustrating, but it can be hard to adapt to the routines of other people and kind of the expectations of others. And coming from such different levels, it can be hard to kind of understand where someone else is coming from. So that was definitely something that I had to work on and saw myself, like, becoming better at as the trip went on.
That's awesome. Yasmin, how about you? What were some of the emotions that you experienced?
I experienced quite a few, but I want to say my biggest emotion if we can even call it an emotion, is acceptance, or maybe overwhelmed. We'll say I felt overwhelmed because I accepted a lot of things. The night of our banquet, the night we had real food, that was just, I felt lots of intense emotions there. And then coming back, we had our final discussion. And so in that final discussion, it was really late. We stayed at the banquet much later than we should have. And by the time we came back, it was pitch black. So we all sat around. A few bugs crawled on me, which was scary, but we had the outward bound flag laid out on the floor. And so we were told to close our eyes and sit there. And one of our instructors retold our story of everything we had done from the very beginning. So she started off like this. She said, remember when you got off the bus and you started making your sandwiches? And I remembered the tomato that I cut on my suitcase. And so she just went through the whole thing when we got rained out, when we went rock climbing, all the things we did. And she went, the story was just so perfectly told. And so while she was doing that, another instructor was setting up the flag, and she had candles and she was kind of placing it around. And then she also had some pins on there. And so by the time the story ended, we were told to open our eyes and we saw the flag with the candles and the pins. She was like, if you're ready, if you feel like you've earned your pin, you can go ahead and grab it. And before that, she talked about the significance of the pin and how not all groups get to do this. And so we all reached for the pin. Even me, I went and I reached and I grabbed a pin. And then she's like, no, wait. Only one of you at a time. You have to grab it and then you tell us why. So I put my pin back and I kind of just sat there and I thought for a second, why would I grab the pin? And I was like, oh, well, for the memories. And then I was like, well, you have pictures for memories because we had a digital camera. So I was like, what is the pin going to represent to you? And I was like, well, I want it to represent a period of growth. And I wanted to represent me overcoming the difficult feelings that I felt while I was encountering the difficult topics such as my parents' divorce and things like that. And so I was like, I just learned about them, but I haven't applied the period of growth to my life. So do I really want the pin? And all of this I was thinking about while everybody else was grabbing their pin and saying why they were grabbing it. So I thought I had been the last one, but I wasn't yet. But there was just like a really long, awkward silence. So I went ahead because I thought everyone was done and said, I'm not going to take my pin. And I explained the reason why. And then someone else at the end said, oh, I'm going to grab my pin. So that was just like a really funny thing. But I ended up leaving my pin, and I think I'm going to call to grab it in January because I believe the breakfast is in February or March. But I feel that I've been able to apply that period of growth and apply the new things I learned in my solo time and feel that I'm ready to finally take the pin and have it as a representation of my period of growth.
That's amazing. I love this. I want to ask you about the element of being in nature through all of this experience. And I'm just curious how nature played a role in the experience that you had. So Yasmin, let's stay with you.
Nature, in this case, I think served as a calming spirit. I remember on I think it was my second or third solo, we got to go to this large rock slab. And so it kind of just overlooked like the whole forest, and it was a beautiful view. And the sun was shining right down on the rock. And so when I went to lay down on the rock, it was so warm. And then it was also kind of mossed over. So it kind of felt like a carpet almost. And I remember while walking, just having the sunlight filtering through the trees and the crunch of the leaves, like it all sounds very storybook, but I think nature in this case for me was very like a calming spirit, other than the bugs, of course.
Yeah, no, I love that. Leilan, how about you?
I feel the same way. For me, like the wilderness and nature and being outside and all of that has just felt like a second home to me. Like it's always been where I feel the most like myself, I feel the most comfortable, and I feel the most capable. So being able to go out and spend a week in like the place, like I've mentioned, where I love the most was just so incredible. And like one area in particular during my own solo time was right next to a stream. So my solo, I found like a fallen tree. So I sat, or like a fallen tree that kind of stretched over the creek. So I sat on this tree trunk and watched the creek below me, and hearing like the trickle of the water and the birds in the trees, and just hearing all like the rustling of the leaves, like Yasmin said, like it was just so calming. And there was just like a sense of serenity that you just can't get anywhere else.
I love this. So guys, when you came back from your trip, you're encouraged to take part in the Unity Club in your high school. And I'm just curious if you could kind of tell us a little bit about what the Unity Club is and what that club does after the course. Leilan, let's stay with you on that.
Yeah, so the Unity Club is just a little group of people within your school. So it's with other students from your high school that either have gone on the course or plan to go on the course or are just interested in what the club does. So it's a way to kind of meet other people from your own community that you likely wouldn't have otherwise met. And then the premise of the club is kind of around service projects and a sense of like unity, obviously. So we're able to work with other organizations in the community. We've worked with like Charlotte organizations based on like cleanups. We've done a lot of creek cleanups with our club. And then we've also volunteered at local organizations for homeless people and for just people who are in need. And we're able to kind of take the skills and leadership roles that we learned on the Unity backpacking course and bring them back home to our own communities and help others who are in need.
That's awesome. Chris, I want to come back to you. What were some of the emotions that you experienced throughout your course?
Like, I think I was crying. I had like 2 emotional breakdowns. I was nervous, and then I was like, I'm excited. Then it was just a lot. Like, I think I was more, it was just a lot. Like, I was excited. It was like different. It was just different emotions that was going on with me.
Yeah, and you and I actually had a chance to talk about this a little bit in advance of the recording, and I'm curious, like, you did go through a lot, and I'm curious how, like, a couple things, how your instructors, we'll start with your instructors, how your instructors were able to help you kind of work through some of that and process some of those emotions.
Like, my first breakdown was I was frustrated with my instructor because we had a meal and it was mac and cheese. And I'm like, okay, boom, I got this. Like, I'm going to do it. He didn't do it the way I would do it. Instead of him putting the cream cheese in there first and then the powder, he put the powder in there, which burnt. And so it was just burnt mac and cheese. And I was like, oh my God. Like, in the smell. And I was just like, dang, this was supposed to be the best meal. And I was just like, me and my friend were like just crying. Like, I was like, Lord, they gonna look at us. We're like, oh, they can't cook. They can't, why they did this? And so I think it was just me overthinking it a lot. Because when I do something, I'm expecting it to be, even though, you make mistakes with things, I'm always expecting, especially when it comes to food, like my food to be top tier. Like, it has to be perfect. My instructors, Chris, which was so crazy, she helped me, and she sat me down, talked to me about everything that I was going through during the course. And then Zozo, oh my God, I love her to death. I did have an incident on the course. It was when we did our banquet, and it was Pride Month, and then I think the day before or the day of our banquet, it was Juneteenth. And so they had Pride Month stickers and Black History stickers. And one of my crewmates was like, why is it all these gay stickers? And I was like, because it's Pride Month. I was like, yeah, period. And then he was like, why is these Black History stickers? I was like, because tomorrow is Juneteenth. He was like, why y'all have so many holidays? I was like, what? And so that triggered me. I think it was very frustrating. Like, I was at my breaking point. Like, I was like, yeah, And so, my instructors helped me handle it well. Like, we talked. She kept me away. Just to help me remove myself away from the group and to help me, with my emotions and, just calm down more.
Well, that brings me to my next question for all of you is if you could kind of think about your Unity project experience, if you could think of 1 or 2 things that really helped you grow or ways that you've grown, what would you say? And Chris, I want to stay with you on that. How did you grow through this experience?
I feel like I've learned to set boundaries with people and communicate how I feel with people and just those relationships with people. Just learning to be me and be comfortable with me and not worry about what the next person has to say.
That's a good one. Yeah. Leilan, what about you? How do you feel like, what are a couple of ways that you feel like you really grew through the Unity Project experience?
I feel like the Unity program helped me to broaden my horizons and broaden my mindset around meeting new people and kind of learning about their own experiences and just acknowledging and understanding and learning from the facts that we're all different and that we all come from very unique backgrounds that help to make us the people we are. And when we're able to kind of combine those experiences and the perspectives that we each bring to the table, it's able to create such a beautiful relationship, and we're able to intertwine our unique experiences and perspectives to create better relationships and grow in that way.
That's great. Yasmin?
I want to say that my main takeaway was learning how to slow down. I'm a very busy person. You know, I play sports, I'm team captain, I'm president here, vice president there. I'm trying to stay on top of my grades. And so that kind of just has me like a go, 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 go. And so while I was at Outward Bound, I kind of just got to slow down, especially on those solo reflection times. And so slowing down showed me the importance of being mentally present as well as I am being physically present, and just kind of what that meant and the value that it could provide for me. So slowing down was definitely my main takeaway that I'm still trying to implement into my life now.
Wow. A lot of great insights from all three of you on that. So I'm curious if there's people listening that could be maybe thinking about going and doing the Unity Project or just Outward Bound in general. What advice would you have for them as they're thinking about whether or not this is a program that they want to participate in? Yasmin, let's start with you.
My advice would be to embrace the challenge. I think more than other people placing us into a box, I think we almost place ourselves into a box. And so sometimes we limit ourselves without even realizing it. And so kind of just thinking outside of the box and embracing the challenges or embracing things that are different opens so many doors and opportunities that you never thought were possible.
Leilan, how about you? What advice would you have for people?
I think, as cliche as it sounds, I think the best advice I can give is to truly be yourself and understand that, like, we are human and we are going to make mistakes and it's going to be hard. But if you just keep like who you are at your heart and you know what you want to do and how you want to act, you are going to be able to like make it through. Get through the mental and the physical challenges, and you'll be able to make new relationships and new friends with people you never would have thought you would.
Great. Chris, what advice do you have for people that are thinking about a backpacking course with Outward Bound and the Unity Project?
I would say be prepared and have fun. Embrace the experience, because you never know when you will ever be able to get experience such as an Outward Bound course.
Fantastic. Well, you guys, you have all three of you lived these epic experiences. You've now been on a Outward Bound backpacking wilderness course. And I want to ask you, how do you feel like this experience is going to impact your lives going forward? As you kind of look into your future, how can you see this experience helping you? And Chris, I want to start with you. How can you envision what you've learned in this experience that you've had and how it's going to help you as you grow into, the next phase of your life?
It kind of has already helped me with my future, because I said, like, once I graduate high school, I want to, go to college and get my business and culinary degree and have my own restaurant. And I think, when I did my Unity course, I actually came up with my restaurant name. So it kind of already, just did a little something, but
That's great. Leilan, how do you see Outward Bound helping you as you move into the next phase of your life?
I think it kind of goes back to what I was talking about with learning how capable I am and kind of becoming more aware of that fact. So I feel like going into like graduating high school, going into college, and then eventually going into a career and everything else going on in my life, I'm going to be able to reflect on my Outward Bound experience and understand that, like, if I can make it through all of the mental and physical challenges that I encountered spending a week in the woods, then I'm going to be able to do this thing and I'm going to be able to do the next thing. And I will always be able to push through and kind of accomplish what I need to do in order to achieve my goals or my hopes for my life.
Awesome. Yasmin, how about you?
In the beginning, I mentioned that Outward Bound was a really great opportunity to build leadership, resilience, and teamwork capabilities. And so I believe that building on those skills and learning how to impact and apply them to your current life, prepares you for so much in the future, because so much in the future requires some of those skills, as well as like meeting new people that you don't know. That comes with everything, with college and with working, and being able to be a good communicator as well is something you learn and something that you use for the rest of your life.
Great. You guys, you have lived such an amazing experience through this Unity project, and it's going to take you guys into the future. And I know all three of you have a very, very bright future, and I'm excited for all three of you. At some point, I think Hollywood is going to pick up on the story of the three of you guys. I'm envisioning like a backpacking adventure expedition movie that the three of you guys are in, and you're out in the wilderness, and it's going to be amazing. I'm just curious, when Hollywood makes a movie about you and your backpacking adventure, who's going to be the Hollywood actor or actress that's going to play you in your movie? And what's your movie going to be called? Yasmin, let's start with you.
This is inspired by TikTok just a little bit, but if I had an actor, I think I'd choose Selena Gomez.
Nice.
I don't know a lot about like acting in Hollywood. I'm not a big TV person, never been really raised, so I had to do a little bit of research. But I kind of connect with her because of the grace that she has, and also her connection to, I think it was faith and family. So her connection to faith and family is something I really identify with, and then also her Latin background.
Cool.
Was really cool to know. So definitely Selena Gomez. And I think the name of my movie would be called I'm Just a Girl.
I love it. This is awesome. Chris, who's going to play you in your movie?
I would say Will Smith, just because the way he is and like his goofy personality and just how he is in life, honestly.
That's awesome. And so Will Smith's going to star as you. What's your movie going to be called?
What did I get myself into?
Oh, what did I get myself into? Starring Will Smith. I love it. These are great. Leilan, how about you?
My actress would have to be Anne Hathaway. She's been one of my favorite actresses growing up. She was in all my favorite movies, so definitely think she's got to be the one.
Nice.
And then my movie would be called The Road Not Taken.
Ooh, okay. Oh man, you guys have some A-list celebrities that are going to have to, bring it for this awesome movie about the bright futures that you guys have and this epic backpacking experience you're all going to take. This has been so much fun. You guys have been awesome. I am so excited for you all and the futures that are ahead of you. And for those listening, I hope you've been inspired today as much as I have. I hope that Chris, Yasmin, and Leilan's story have encouraged you to listen to the voice inside that calls you to adventure, because we want to hear your story next. If you have a story to tell or just need a nudge to create one, please send me an email. We'd also appreciate it if you'd help us spread the word by leaving a review and sharing or tagging Inspire Campfire in your social media. And until next time, I want to encourage you to get outside. Thanks for listening. Chris, Yasmin, Leilan, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thank you for the opportunity.